Please be seated. Well, I have to begin by reading the gospel that is in your bulletin. Otherwise, my sermon will make even less sense than it might otherwise. From the 25th chapter of Matthew. Jesus said, "Then the kingdom of heaven will be like this. 10 bridesmaids took their lamps and went to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish and 5 were wise. When the foolish took their lamps, they took no oil with them, but the wise took flasks of oil with their lamps. As the bridegroom was delayed, all of them became drowsy and slept. But at midnight there was a shout, 'Look, here is the bridegroom. Come out to meet him.' Then all those bridesmaids got up and trimmed their lamps. The foolish said to the wise, 'Give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out.' But the wise replied, 'No, there will not be enough for you and for us. You had better go to the dealers and buy some for yourselves.' And while they went to buy it, the bridegroom came. And those who were ready went with him into the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. Later, the other bridesmaids came also, saying, 'Lord, Lord, open to us.' But he replied, 'Truly I tell you, I do not know you. Keep awake, therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour.'" When my granddaughter Abigail was quite small, she had a habit, whenever she was riding around in the car, of asking, "How many minutes till we get there?" The question seemed to be of critical importance and applied to whomever the driver happened to be and wherever the destination was. She would ask it on familiar routes like home to school, as well as the less familiar ones, like some adventurous outing with me. I would try to give her an accurate answer, about 20 minutes, I might say, and in a couple of minutes, Abigail would pipe up again. "How many minutes now?" This would continue until we arrived at the appointed destination. It drove her parents crazy. "Abigail, we'll get there when we get there. Now don't ask me again." As the grandparent subjected less often to this behavior, I was somewhat more indulgent and tried to make a game of it. "You'll be home by the time you count to 60 5 times, I might say. A strategy that at least gave her something to do for a few minutes. Now, I don't know exactly what was being expressed in Abigail's questioning. Perhaps it was simply evidence of a child's perception of time, where a minute can literally seem like an eternity. Maybe it was an anxiety-driven need to impose order on an unpredictable world. And maybe she was learning how to soothe herself, a very important life skill, to reassure herself that she was safe, that she would be taken care of. Regardless of what was going on in Abigail's 4-year-old heart, though, we grown-ups know this territory. "Oh Lord, make haste to help me," the psalmist cries. "Do not delay." Every single one of us knows the agony of waiting. Waiting for the biopsy results, waiting for the baby to come, waiting for the job offer, waiting for the next blow up at home, waiting in the myriad of situations that life presents to us, waiting for the pain of living in this difficult world to stop. Someone, I can't remember who, has said that Christianity is the waiting religion. We'll be talking about waiting a lot when we get to Advent, the season of waiting. But here we are 3 weeks before Advent, waiting for the waiting to begin. In the gospel lesson for today, 10 bridesmaids are waiting for the arrival of the groom. But for reasons we do not know, his arrival is delayed, and they get tired of waiting, and they go to sleep. Finally, at midnight, there's a shout. "Look, here is the bridegroom. Come out to meet him." All 10 wake up and begin to trim their lamps. But there's a problem. 5 forgot to bring extra oil. And they do what any of us might do. They ask their sisters to help them out. But the so-called wise ones are clear. No, that's your problem. You go get your own oil. And sadly, by the time the foolish ones return from wherever they had to go to buy oil in the middle of the night, they are locked out, suddenly, unexpectedly disinvited to the wedding banquet. There are so many problems with this text, I hardly know where to begin. But the most glaring, the one that causes us to scratch our heads and wonder what in the world is going on, is that the bridegroom, whom we presume to be none other than Jesus himself, has turned into a Jesus we hardly recognize. "Truly I tell you," the bridegroom says, "I do not know you." Or as Eugene Peterson puts it in the Message, "Do I know you? I don't think I know you." Which makes me want to ask Matthew, who gave us this awful story, "Who are you and what have you done with my Jesus?" Don't we wish we could rewrite this story? Here's how I would like it to go. The prudent bridesmaids cheerfully share with their flighty sisters. Not only are they nice and kind and learned about sharing in Sunday school, but they trust that even when resources are limited, there will be enough for everyone. Furthermore, even if the oil does give out, the party host will throw open the door anyway because everyone is welcome here. As the night wears on, the water will turn to wine, the loaves will multiply, and a good time will be had by all. Jesus loves me, this I know. If nothing else, we can count on that. Matthew is the only gospel writer to record this even more difficult than usual parable. It's the second in a string of 4 parables that seem, frankly, grossly unfair and portray Jesus as mean and unyielding. First in this lineup of 4 is the parable about faithful and wicked slaves. Then today's tale of the wise and foolish bridesmaids, followed by the long, drawn-out story of the talents, the good and trustworthy slaves pitted against the ones who were wicked and lazy. And to wind up this depressing parade of warnings, Jesus separates the sheep from the goats. Faithful versus wicked, wise versus foolish, good and trustworthy versus wicked and lazy. And at the end of each scenario, the unavoidable consequences of being on the wrong side. is spelled out with shocking clarity. Hellfire, eternal punishment, the outer darkness with plenty of weeping and gnashing of teeth thrown in for good measure. There is an alarming sense of urgency to these warnings that turn out to be, according to Matthew at least, Jesus' final parables before the plot to arrest and kill him is set in motion. It's like Jesus is the original tough love parent trying one last time to get our attention. Now, I wish, I really do, that I could stand here and tell you how to keep your lamps trimmed and burning. I wish that I could give you step-by-step directions for making absolutely sure that you are among the faithful, wise, trustworthy, and good. But frankly, when I look at my own life, I have to admit that I am always forgetting the extra oil. I am, more often than I like to admit, like Abigail, wanting to know when exactly we're going to arrive. I want to know exactly the definitive answers to all my questions. I want to know when I will arrive at some imagined destination where all problems and dilemmas are finally resolved. The message seems to be that how we live into the ambiguity of life, how we lean into not knowing, how we wait for resolution when we clearly are not in control of the outcome, all of that matters. Waiting is not optional. We will spend the rest of our lives waiting for something. But can we come to terms with the reality that most of what is before us cannot be known, much less controlled? Can we make peace with the fact that we are not in charge of the universe, that we really are not calling the shots? Can we just ride without constantly needing to know how many more minutes? All the bridesmaids got tired, and they all fell asleep. They were all invited, and they all wanted the wedding feast to begin. But the wise ones could somehow weather the wait, while the foolish ones could not. Our entire lives, Richard Rohr has said, and the life of the church are one prolonged Advent. Advent is always until the end of days. I wonder what difference it would make if we lived as if that were true.